Hello and good morning. It's your most authoritative news portal, the Joy News Channel, your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Good morning and welcome to News Desk. Coming up, 80-year-old retired soldier shoots 2 children and their father at Bremen in the Ashanti region. We have details. IGP inspects the extent of damage at the Tebibiano police station, which was torched by alleged land guards a couple of days ago. We'll take you live for more. And in business, GOIL suspends its membership from the Association of Oil Marketing Companies following accusations that it is allowing government to interfere in its operations. And we'll be talking about that today. Details of these and more coming up in this hour. My name is Kojo Yankson. It's a pleasure to have you here. All right, let's get started. Now, an 80-year-old ex-military officer has shot 2 children and their father at Bremen in the Suame Municipality of Ashanti region over a rent dispute. The children, aged 6 and 8 years, are receiving treatment at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. The father, Collins Kusi, says he was the target for the shooting, but the children were hit in the process. Nanaya Ojima has more. Here's his report.
The left ear of Collins Kusi is completely covered in band-aid. Wounds he claims to have sustained from gunshots are visible on his chest. The distraught father explains how the family was attacked.
10 minutes. Papa na me fio no won de japon na chira o jam puma chi a wode danger mienu abo epuma na chi.
I heard a knock on my door. I came out to find the old man tie a red cloth around my windows. I asked him why. In a loud voice, he asked me whether he hadn't issued death threats at me before.
Makasemeku. Demkra ma hu se hama kwakuta no. Dem hu ase wode hama na bom aso aflamiti.
He had a hammer in his hand which I didn't see. He then hit me with the hammer. I quickly struggled with him for the hammer. After taking the hammer from him, he went into his room and brought out a single barrel gun. He shot in my direction twice, but it missed me. I later struggled with him for the gun. Later, I heard people calling my attention to the children who were down bleeding at the point.
The threats were issued in 2019 after the demise of his landlord. Mr. Kusi says the suspect had demanded rent allowance from him despite being directed to pay the money to another relative.
The man who used to be the landlord told me to deal with one niece called Angela. So after 2019, when I paid my rent to Angela, this man has been disturbing me since.
The 2 children are responding to treatment at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. The suspect also sustained injuries after struggling with the father of the victims. Superintendent Emmanuel Esiama is District Police Commander at Suame.
The suspect was also arrested immediately after the event. He also notified police that he was suffering from his wrists and limbs because the victim used some implement to hit him. So as we speak, because of the injury that he also sustained, he has been hospitalized under police guard to receive medical treatment. We are praying that after the medical treatment, suspect will arraigned before court.
For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima, Kumasi.
Now, some aggrieved members of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, National Association of Graduate Teachers, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers in the Volta region have raised concerns over developments surrounding the One Teacher, One Laptop initiative. According to the members, leaders of their associations didn't inform them about the negotiations, neither did members approve the decision of the Professional Development Allowance to procure the laptops. Addressing the press in Ho, the convener of the aggrieved teachers, Matthias Tulasi, questioned the track record of KA Technologies. The firm awarded the contract to supply the teachers' mate laptops. There's more in this report.
It's a duty of our employer to provide for all of us our working tools, and as such, laptops are of no exception. It is therefore non-negotiable for teachers to use their allowance or salary to procure teaching and learning aids. In the past regime, teachers were given laptops for free. And why wouldn't the same be done under the leadership of His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo? It is very disturbing knowing that our pension money was withdrawn and given to the so-called company. Again, out of greed and disrespect for members, they did so without our consent. The cost of laptop, which is 1,550, including training, maintenance, technical support, etc., has become chameleon-like. Inconsistent figures being bundled around raises serious issues of suspicion. It is not obvious the deal was just for chop-chop. Now that they have deducted a chunk of this money and used to procure the laptop for us, we want to know what is the equivalence in terms of points that will accrue to each teacher. Again, how do we now pay for workshops and other trainings yet to be organized? In short, deducting the laptop money from our professional development allowance is an act of criminality. We call on our regional council members of NAT, who are part of National Council, to resign honorably or face a wrath. The leaders at the district levels should be ready to face impeachment processes that we will soon employ to remove them from office. We are using this medium to call on all delegates to boycott the upcoming delegate conference or injunction placed on it with immediate effect until all issues surrounding these fraudulent transactions are resolved. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we want to state the deal is very fraudulent and that all deductions made should be refunded to us with immediate effect. Amen. We will not allow ourselves to be taken for granted by our union leaders and government. We are therefore proposing to government to start paying us the professional development allowance on monthly basis beginning January 2022. Madam Philippa, Mr. Thomas Musa, Angel, aka Ivo Kabonu, and Ki Ali are now the cause of woes of teachers in Ghana. Yes. We call on all teachers across the country to join the fight against our union leaders as we demand what is due us.
And now to the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, where AMA health officials have locked up 2 milling shops and a public toilet at Kolegono for failing to meet health and sanitation standards. Preparation of akpana, kenke, banku, tuo and other foods starts from the milling machine. But have you paid attention to where your groceries are milled? Michael Papani Ashale takes you on a trip to Kolegono, and he was there. Here's his report.
Dirty floors and cobwebs up in the ceiling. This mill had been processing bags of maize each day to unsuspecting customers and consumers for several years. The owner, upon seeing the team from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, abandoned the shop. But that will not deter the health officials. Team lead George Lawson of the Ablikuma South Sub-Metro of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly says they have decided to lock it up after earlier cautions to the owner fell on deaf ears.
And, by our standard, a corn mill's floor should be cemented, but you can look at the floor. It's not cemented, the floor is cracked. And you can see that they are operating in an insanitary environment, meaning that the food that will be prepared from here. The source of the food that is coming from here is already contaminated, compromising what? Food safety and hygiene standard. Therefore, we are going to close this place down. The operators of the place, as they see us, they have run away. They have abandoned the place. We are going to send them to court. We will ask them to renovate the structure. Because look at the structure here. We will ask them to cobwebs the floor. We are going to ask them to renovate the floor, to cement and concrete the floor very well.
At another mill, the owner in a similar fashion had abandoned the shop. Again, the officers put the facility under lock and key.
Because they knew we were coming, they ran away and they locked the place. Look at the floor. We were here several times. Notices upon notices issued to them to improve the conditions under which they operate, but to no avail. So as a last resort, they've locked it, but we are going to lock it and then stop them from what? Operating until we are satisfied with the condition under which they operate.
Hello, my name is Nathaniel Atto. You can catch up with all the fun and inspiration on the Joy Sports link here on Joy 99.7 FM, together with all other shows over and over again. It's very simple. All you need to do is go to myjoyonline.com/podcast and relive all of those fun moments over and over again. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for discerning listeners.
Joy 99.7.
Now to other stories. The special prosecutor is currently briefing the media on work done so far. Let's take you live to the Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel where the event is happening.
The Deputy Special Prosecutor, civil society organizations present here, members of the media, our guests. I welcome you to today's briefing, which I intend to make it brief. Today marks International Anti-Corruption Day as declared under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And so today I intend to give a little insight into what has transpired and what we will be doing from next year in respect of the suppression and repression of corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, on 24 June 2007, Ghana ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which is the only legally binding universal anti-corruption instrument. In his foreword on the General Assembly resolution adopting the convention, Kofi Annan stated that corruption is an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on societies. It undermines democracy and the rule of law, leads to violations of human rights, distorts markets, erodes the quality of life, and allows organized crime, terrorism, and other threats to human security to flourish. Unhappily, these words ring too forcefully in Ghana as corrupt practices debase our progress and our performance on the Corruption Perception Index compiled by Transparency International has been marked by perennial underachievement. Yet, Ghana is taking remarkable steps in the quest to suppress and repress corruption. Establishment of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the Economic and Organized Crime Office, and the Financial Intelligence Center bear testimony to this. The recent amendment of the Criminal Offences Act under the Criminal Offences Amendment Act 2020, Act 1034, upgrading corruption and corruption-related offenses from misdemeanors to second-degree felonies, is indicative of a reckoning of the destructiveness of corruption and a desire to stem the tide of such offenses by imposing stiffer sentences on offenders. Ghana made its most definitive statement on the strife against corruption with the passage of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, which came into force on 2 January 2018 and established the Office of the Special Prosecutor, OSP, as the gold standard and flagship specialized independent anti-corruption agency in pursuance of the UN Convention, with the object of investigating and prosecuting specific cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in the public and in the private sector, recovering the proceeds of such acts by disgorging illicit and unexplained wealth and taking steps to prevent corruption. The notable advancement is that the OSP is fortified with the cure of the inadequacies of the existing anti-corruption agencies by being designed as a comprehensive anti-graft agency with investigative, prosecutorial, intelligence gathering, surveillance and counter-surveillance, police, national security, and revenue-generating powers. The OSP is thus a vital institution for economic development. The OSP derives its powers mainly from the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, Office of the Special Prosecutor Regulations 2018, LI 2373, Office of the Special Prosecutor Operations Regulations 2018, LI 2374, and other laws bearing on the suppression and repression of corruption. In addition to taking its own initiative, the OSP also receives and acts on referrals of investigations of alleged corruption and corruption-related offenses from Parliament, the Auditor General, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the Economic and Organized Crime Office, and other public institutions. The office also receives and acts on complaints from private entities and individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, let me touch on the target persons of the OSP in its investigative and prosecutorial functions. It is very important, and they are as follows. 1, public officials. That is to say, persons who hold public office. That is, an office, the salaries and benefits of which are paid directly from the consolidated fund, the contingency fund, or directly out of monies provided by Parliament, and an office in a public corporation established entirely out of public funds or monies provided by Parliament. 2nd, target persons, politically exposed persons. These are persons who have been entrusted with prominent public functions in Ghana or in a foreign country or an international organization, such as political party officials, that is senior political party officials, government officials, judicial officials, military officials, or a person who is or has been an executive in a foreign country of a state-owned company, or a senior political party official in a foreign country, or an immediate family member or close associate of such persons. 3rd, target persons, private persons. And the 4th, legal persons, such as corporations, companies, organizations, associations, clubs, etc. It is important to also bring up the offenses under the mandate of the OSP. Sometimes there is some confusion as to what the OSP is mandated to investigate and prosecute or otherwise. The offenses the OSP is mandated to investigate and prosecute are classified as corruption and corruption-related, and they include the following. Please take note. Dishonestly receiving property, that is, where a person receives, buys, or assists in the disposal of property which the person knows has been obtained or appropriated by a crime without intending to return the property to the owner. Extortion, that is, where a person obtains property from another person by means of threat of libel or slander, threat of prosecution for an offense, threat of detention, and any other form of threat not involving assault or harm to the person threatened. Using public office for profit, where a public officer corruptly or dishonestly abuses his or her office for private gain, or where a private person acts in collaboration with a public officer for the public officer to corruptly or dishonestly abuse his or her office for private gain. This is what you call bribery. There's another form of bribery, which is corruption of and by a public officer or juror. This is where a public officer or juror, in respect of his duties of office, directly or indirectly agrees or offers to permit his conduct as a public officer or juror to be influenced by a gift, a promise, or a prospect of valuable consideration, or where another person so corrupts a public officer or juror. The other bribery offense is corrupt promise by a judicial officer or juror. This is where a person makes or offers to make an agreement with another person as to the judgment or verdict which that person will or will not give as a judicial officer or juror in a pending or future proceeding. Then we have corrupt selection of juror. That is where a person procures for that person or another person to be summoned, empaneled, or sworn as a juror, or endeavors to prevent a person from being summoned, empaneled, or sworn as a juror for the purpose of securing an undue advantage or disadvantage to a party to a judicial proceeding. Then we have corruption, intimidation, and personation in respect of election. And this is very dear to my heart. Where a person endeavors to influence the conduct of a voter in respect of an election by threat of an evil consequence to be caused to the voter or to any other person on account of the conduct of the voter, or seeks to corrupt a voter or impersonates another person in respect of an election. Then, one which is dearer to my heart, falsification of return at election, where a person, as a public officer charged with the counting of votes or the making of a return at a public election, willfully falsifies the tally of votes or makes a false return of the votes. Then we have withholding of public money by a public officer. That is where a public officer who is bound in that capacity to pay or account for money or a valuable thing, or to produce or give a document or any other thing up, fails to do so when that person is lawfully requested to do so. Then we come to public procurement offenses. That is where a person enters or attempts to enter into a collusive agreement or influences the procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage, or alters procurement documents to influence the outcome, or requests for unpermitted clarification. Then we have the umbrella offenses. These are classified under the law as existent offenses arising out of or consequent upon the above offenses I've enumerated. This may be in the nature of what we call predicate offenses. These are crimes that are components of other crimes. So that is to say, an offense as a result of which proceeds have been generated that may become the subject of any of the above offenses. Then we have linked or related offenses. These are crimes that are either way or that may be charged jointly or in the alternative. Then we have antecedent offenses. These are crimes that precede or are prior to the above crimes. These existent offenses include, let me go through them quickly. Laundering of proceeds of crime, dearest to my heart. The acquisition, possession, or use of property or currency knowing at the time of receipt that such property or currency is the proceeds of crime. The conversion or transfer of property or currency, knowing that such property or currency is a proceeds of crime for the purpose of concealing or disguising the illicit origin of the property or currency, or of helping any person who is involved in the commission of that offense to evade the legal consequences of his or her action. Then the concealment or disguise of the true nature, source, location, disposition, movement or ownership of or rights with respect to property or currency, knowing that such property or currency is a proceeds of crime. Then we also have illicit enrichment or unexplained wealth. That is, a significant increase in the assets of a person that he or she cannot reasonably explain in relation to his or her lawful income. That is to say, an inexplicable gap between a person's total wealth and their lawfully acquired wealth. Then we also have bribery in the private sector. We also have abuse of functions. And we have embezzlement, misappropriation, or either diversion of property or currency. Then, what is very typical in our society, influence peddling or trading in influence. Then quickly we have obstruction of the administration of justice. That is to say, the use of physical force, stress or intimidation, promise, offering or giving of an undue advantage to induce false testimony, the use of physical force, stress or intimidation to interfere with exercise of official duties by a judge or a law enforcement official, and where a public officer refuses or fails without reasonable excuse to cooperate with the OSP when information is requested or lawful assistance is sought from that public officer, or where a person fails to comply with a lawful demand of the OSP, where a person fails to produce a document or provide information requested by the OSP, where a person fails to produce property or currency declared to be seized by the OSP, where a person conceals or attempts to conceal property or currency liable to seizure by the OSP, where a person knowingly furnishes false information to the OSP, where a person refuses to grant the OSP access to premises or refuses to submit to a search, where a person assaults an officer of the OSP in the performance of his or her functions, where a person obstructs an officer of the OSP from performing his or her functions, and where an officer of the OSP communicates confidential information to an authorized person or discloses the personal details of an informant to a third person without authority. The lecturer in me was coming out there. It is instructive to state that the OSP has the mandate to investigate and prosecute these offenses whether or not the offenses were committed in Ghana or in a foreign country, so far as the act or conduct constitutes a crime in Ghana. The OSP, ladies and gentlemen, has completed a review of all the alleged cases of corruption and corruption-related offenses before it. Currently, the OSP is investigating 31 active cases, and it will, in due course, commence the prosecution in the courts of the cases it considers probatively strong. There is no case commenced by the OSP pending in the courts at the moment. I inherited one court case, that is the Republic against Mahama Ayariga and another, which I discontinued in October after a careful scrutiny of the available evidence led me to conclude that the Republic will be unable to prove its case on the standard of proof required in criminal cases, that is, proof beyond reasonable doubt. Let me also state that the assignment and full dedication by the government of a 10-story building at South Ridge, Accra, for the sole use of the OSP, and the steps taken and being taken by the Office of the President and the Chief of Staff in the establishment and maintenance of the OSP are highly commendable and a testament to a commitment to the fight against corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, upon my assumption of office on 5th August 2021 as the second Special Prosecutor of the Republic, I noticed that the OSP had not been operationalized, and it was without its own staff and necessary resources. The fight against corruption had, in effect, been thrown in reverse for 3 years. I immediately triggered the processes to set up and operationalize the office, to staff it with specialized trained personnel, and to fit it with the required material resources and equipment. By so doing, the fight against corruption has been resuscitated, and we will carry on the renewed fervor during my tenure in office. As the institution specifically tasked with taking steps to prevent corruption, I resolve that in the coming year, the OSP will institute and strengthen measures to prevent, suppress, and repress corruption more efficiently and effectively than has ever been done in this republic. This should portend hope that Ghana is taking concrete steps to drive down the incidence of corruption. I have commenced engagement with law enforcement and anti-corruption agencies, including the Attorney Generals, the National Security Secretariat, the Ghana Police Service, Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Economic and Organized Crime Office, and the Financial Intelligence Center. I have also opened insightful interactions and meetings with foreign and diplomatic missions and international organizations in accordance with our mutual legal assistance regime and that of the UN Convention. I have invited the participation and collaboration of anti-corruption civil society groups, non-governmental organizations, and community-based organizations, the media, and investigative journalists to support the work and operations of the OSP in our collective effort in combating corruption. I state with gratification that the response has been enthusiastic. Ladies and gentlemen, from January 2022, the OSP will institute, as part of its Pressure for Progress drive, an annual Ghana Corruption League table to assess perceived levels of public sector corruption in the estimation of experts and business people. In aid of this, public agencies will be ranked against each other on a corruption barometer, and the results will be published every 9 December. We have commenced discussions with the local chapter of Transparency International, that is the Ghana Integrity Initiative, which is going to be our main strategic partner on this program. Ladies and gentlemen, the OSP from January 2022 would also require all public institutions, departments, agencies, and companies to prepare and submit to the OSP integrity plans intended at assessing deficiencies in their regulations, procedures, policies, guidelines, administration instructions, and internal control mechanisms to determine their vulnerability and exposure to corrupt practices and the prescription of curative measures to manage such susceptibility to corruption and corruption-related offenses. I am also setting up internal control mechanisms at the OSP to prevent corruption at the OSP itself. The OSP would also carry out anti-corruption risk assessment and review from January 2020 of all major public contracts, legislation, and draft legislation. This is intended to avoid toxic deals and the prevalence of judgment debts and arbitration awards. The office would also undertake continuous education and information of the public and the publicizing of detected acts of corruption. The OSP would vigorously investigate and prosecute cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses and recover proceeds of such offenses through property tracing of tainted property and currency in line with our vision of rendering corruption a costly enterprise. On another score, I look forward to the provision of adequate funding and the necessary material resources as stipulated in Articles 6 and 36 of the UN Convention to carry out this most challenging and solemn mandate. I cannot help but state that without adequate funding and the provision of the necessary material resources, the good intentions of my staff and I would remain just good intentions with nothing concrete to show for it. As we mark International Anti-Corruption Day and Anti-Corruption Week, I invite all well-meaning Ghanaians, let's renew our mindsets, and collectively, let's help to turn the negative narrative of corruption to transform this republic and place it on a solid developmental track. On this score, we must draw on the wisdom of hindsight in our pursuit of a fairer society. We cannot continue on the path of see no evil, hear no evil. Let us expose the evil of corruption. Let us eschew corrupt practices, as we bear in mind that ours should be a life of live and let live in the national interest. We must transform our thinking and psyche from a ritualistic gift-giving society marked by undeserved attainment of wealth to secure undue advantage in all spheres of life to one of merit-based rewards. This is our sure chance to curb corruption, and we cannot miss this opportunity. God bless us all. God bless Ghana.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard the official message from the SP. It's now time for questions from the media. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sami Dako, and I'm your MC for today. So we'll take the first question from Elton John Broby from Multimedia Group Limited. Your question. Then after that, we'll take 3 in a row, and then SP answers, and then we take the next batch. So after Elton will be Wilberforce of Asase Ready. And
maybe let me just answer you. Elton, thanks. The last one first. You know, in terms of investigation and prosecution, the Act is very clear that the board cannot interfere with the special prosecutor in that. So the special prosecutor can go on that without the board's input or otherwise. The board cannot come close to any matters involving investigation and prosecution of persons. But what I stated was that not that we're going to prosecute all the 31 cases. I said that we have 31 active cases before us now. We finished the entire review, and those that will take to court for prosecution will be what we believe are probatively strong in terms of the evidence to match up to prove beyond reasonable doubt. The others will advise ourselves in the national interest as to how to go about them. And, you know, putting things out there when you are not too sure whether you want to prosecute at this stage or not is that you may end up destroying people's reputations for life. Because immediately you mention that you are investigating this person or you are investigating that person, immediately there is a negative attachment to the persons. And that is why I have refrained from touching on the specific cases.
So there was a second question as to how the OSP board is absent, whether it's hampering your work or not.
Oh, I thought it was specifically in relation to investigations and prosecutions. But you meant generally. Well, generally, the other aspects it's hampering our work because, especially in respect of HR and staffing issues and policy-wise, without the board, we are disabled from doing a lot of these things. So we hope the board will be interested soon so that we can proceed with the comprehensive functions under the Act and the allies.
We take the next question.
The question is multifaceted. This is it. Wilberforce. Without money, we can't do anything. We will be reduced to writing long letters without any force. Because we need money for everything, especially our operations. And the question as to whether what was allotted to the ASP was sufficient, I would say generally in Ghana nothing is sufficient. And what was put there, I have seen. It doesn't match up to my expectations. But I cannot give up. I'll continue pushing the envelope. I see things written on paper, but I'll keep asking and I'll keep pushing so that we can get what we require to establish and operationalize this office well. Mind you, I keep saying, and every opportunity I get, I'll hop on it. When I inherited the office, there was nothing there. There was nothing. Yes, established under law, but its operationalization was zero. And so, to do this, we need the resources to put things in place. The various divisions ought to be established on the ground: finance, administration, operations, investigations, prosecutions, strategy, communications, asset recovery and management. All these have to be instituted. And in respect of all this, without money, we cannot do it. Kisejabin can't do it. So we need the money. That is why I said that I'm looking forward to it, because I do not see it as a closed case. I will keep pushing, we will keep pushing, and we'll keep engaging so we get the necessary resources to fund our operations.
And that's Kisi Ajabing, the special prosecutor, addressing the press at Kempinski, giving an update on the work of the Office of the Special Prosecutor since he took over earlier this year. And the highlights of his update are that there are 31 cases currently at various stages of either investigation or processing, and that the probatively strong ones will be taken to court. Currently, there are no active cases in court. He has discontinued the one case that was in court, which he inherited. That was the one against Mahama Ayariga. He also talks about how, for the period of time that the office existed before he took over, according to Mr. Kisi Ajabing, processes had been thrown into reverse in the fight against corruption. But under his tenure, the fight against corruption has been, in his words, resuscitated. He also points to what we can expect in the coming year from January 2022 under a program they call Pressure for Progress. There will be a corruption league table compiled in association with the Ghana Integrity Initiative. And the results of this league table will be published on the 9th of December every year. The idea being to rank public institutions in their work fighting corruption. There will be a review of all major public contracts and legislation by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And this, he says, is to avoid embarrassing adverse judgments that could come out of going into ill-advised deals. And of course, he expressed his hope for continued funding of the office so they can do their work. And he said that Ghanaians must renew our mindsets, expose the evil of corruption, and move from the ritualistic gift-giving society to one of merit-based rewards. We've also heard how the absence of a board currently impedes some of the work of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, particularly when it comes to their administrative processes. He actually said, and I quote, "There was nothing in the office when I inherited." So these are some of the highlights from the ongoing encounter between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and some selected members of the press. Let's do some more stories here on Joy News Desk. Ghana's quest to reach low-carbon construction and affordable housing might never see the light of day, as a technology birthed 46 years ago is still struggling to gain attention. Love News investigation has revealed that tech block press used for molding laterite blocks has been abandoned. On Tech Thursday, Love FM's Kwesi Deborah looks at how Ghana could have taken advantage of this promising innovation.
So we are now putting the laterite into the machine, the molded machine. And you can see this bucket is our gauge bucket that we use. So when you see this bucket, we are using the purpose for the gauge. Then you add a few laterite with cement so that you have the machine will be filled to its capacity. My other counterpart is bringing the lever to me for compacting. So you can see I'll hold it like this and press it 3 times, then it's compact. After that, I'll give it to him back. Lift it, then the molded block will be out. So lift it. As you can see, it's coming up. It's coming up. Then you are finished with your molded block. This is the way tech block is molded.
This machine is called Tech Block Press, designed at KNUST by the Center for Settlement Studies and the Department of Mechanical Engineering. And as you can see here, we have a copyright to the manual of the Tech Block, issued by the Ministry of Works and Housing in the year 1975. So in Kumasi, some of the areas where the buildings were constructed and which are still performing functionally after 50 years. And right here on campus, all the buildings that were constructed are still performing, for the past 50 years or more. And for many of you who are very familiar with even the university campus, those who are familiar with Katanga Hall, the structure behind which is normally called Shaba, is a typical example of a building, 33-seater hostel, which was built with this material and has been in perfect shape up till now. If you look back at the way our forefathers used this material to construct Atakpame and those buildings, there were a lot of problems with the structures, because of the way they built it, and that has more or less sort of created some impression in the minds of people that this is a cheap material. And so, when after a time the economy was improving and cement-based materials were now more in the system, people tend to look down on the material and saw it as an inferior quality. 1 bag of cement will normally produce about 100 blocks. So per our estimation, 1 block will be costing around 1 cedi 50 pesos to 2 cedis. We are of the feeling that with how far we came with the technology, if there was government policy to direct its use in the country, perhaps we could have solved many of the rural, especially rural issues related to housing, including even...
You're watching News Desk on the Joy News channel. Still to come in business, GOIL suspends its membership from the Association of Oil Marketing Companies following accusations that it is allowing government to interfere in its operations. Details of these and more after these messages.
What's up, guys? My name is Sammy Forson, host of the Weekend City Show and Ignition right here on Joy 99.7 FM. Well, anytime you happen to be busy and you miss out on your favorite shows right here on Joy FM, here's what you can do. Log on to myjoyonline.com/podcast. Just go on there and you'll find all your shows on demand 24/7. There you can catch up. Remember, Joy FM remains your radio for discerning listeners.
You're welcome back. Oil marketing firm GOIL has announced its suspension from the Association of Oil Marketing Companies. This was contained in a letter by the association cited by Joy Business. George Wiafe has the rest of that story.
GOIL, in the letter to the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, noted that it has taken this action because of how it has been treated. It also describes the action as gross disrespect to the company and subjecting it to public ridicule because of allegations that it has been directed by government to reduce prices at the pumps. The oil marketing firm in the said letter noted that it finds the action of the association as interesting, especially when it has called a board meeting to discuss the issue, but rather decided to issue this letter and leak it to the public. According to God, is also surprised by the stance of the association that has now found its voice and the audacity to allege that the government directed it to reduce prices. This because the association is also aware of activities of some oil marketing firms that enabled them to undercut GOIL, but has kept quiet about it and go ahead to take actions that denigrate the board and management of GOIL. According to GOIL, the Association of Oil Marketing Companies should be reminded that its prime motive is not for profit making, but also have in mind its corporate social responsibility to Ghanaians that are holding about 78% in the company through government, board, and Senate. It noted that as an independent company, it can anytime take actions in the interest of its shareholders and consumers. It is not clear for now what will be the response of the Association of Oil Marketing Companies going forward, following this move by GOIL.
Well, that's all she wrote. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me, Kojo Yankson, on the Joy News desk. There's so much more to come on this channel, so stay with us for the duration as more and more stories that are coming up across the country and the world are shared with you here. It's been a pleasure. Let's do it again soon. Have a wonderful day.